Well, welcome to After Hours. After 2 weeks being on a slight pause, we are back. And glad that all of you are joining us. So make sure you chime in and tell us that you're... It's a huge viewers audience.
I guess we can't see who's joining us
idea.
here. We have no idea now.
Oh no, we'll still be able to tell here.
You gotta chime in.
Yeah, can you say hello, please?
Yes, please do.
If Karen's here.
We need
John,
some audience
who's
participation tonight.
Candace?
So
And actually, you were saying that tonight's like almost like 6 months.
it is. I actually think it
6
is almost. Well, we might be 1 week short. So 6 months of
We should have
doing.
some cake.
You would like that.
Hi, John.
Aw, thank you, John, for.
Oh,
Hi,
Karen
Karen.
said hi.
Nice to see you too. So tonight we're gonna start with a really important question. What's scary in your
Who's
life?
that again? ETCJ.
Who is
Who's that
ETC?
again?
Jason and Chelsea.
Oh,
hi.
hi. From a far off land, chiming in.
Nice.
Okay, what's scary about your life? Because your life should be scary. That's one of the things you said on Sunday. Our life should be scary in a certain
Should
way.
have saved that for a Halloween sermon.
Dun, dun,
What's scary?
dun, 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 dun.
But I said if we're living life after Jesus, it's going to scare people.
Mhm,
How is that true?
mhm. So what do you think, Lisa?
My mom just said, we're on After Hours. She just texted me.
Hi, Char.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so say that again, Tom. I was distracted.
No, Lisa.
Sorry.
I told Lisa to leave her iPad at home because it was too distracted.
I know.
No, that's not true.
It's all good.
In fact, I'm glad, Charlotte, that you wrote in. It's nice to know that people are out there.
Yeah. Thank you. So what's scary in life? But what you said was our life should actually scare people.
Right.
Because essentially it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. We're not going after the things of the world.
So we call them broad truths, truths that are just accepted on the broad way, and then there are the opposite of that. We have these default truths, and then they have the opposite of that, which scares people. It's like you're not believing fundamental things like money is everything, or comfort is what matters, or wine makes you happy, or whatever. It's not that you don't believe that, but you go, this isn't how I'm not going to live my life around those things. And so you live your life around giving away money. You live your life around taking up your cross and following Jesus. That's scary. I was thinking about that, like just how incredible it is that you look at somebody's life and they live in a mansion and they have. I caught myself just thinking, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Somebody was talking about their place, right, down by the river, and they have a place on the river and 5 bedrooms, and I thought, oh, wouldn't that be nice? And I think, oh, that's just such a beautiful picture. And then you look at the picture of Jesus, and there's blood, and there's suffering, and there's a cross, and he says, come this way. And not to be always a downer, but who wants to do that?
Right.
Who wants to do that?
So we didn't get an
Why
answer
wouldn't
though. No, we wouldn't. Naturally speaking. So what do you think, Lise?
Well, I was just thinking, Tom, when I first met you, I thought your life was really scary.
You don't anymore?
Not as
It
much.
scares me.
Not as much. But when I first met you, honestly, and I started to get to know you, I was like, your life really terrifies me.
Why?
Because
what about it?
I think, especially as somebody that kind of was more churched in kind of a general sense, like it was more you go to church on Sunday and that's just kind of it, and it's just, that's all it was. I just remember how you spent time with young adults. You had Kessia that was, I don't know, 12 maybe at the time, 12, 13.
Yeah.
And Kathy, and you guys were working and you had her. And I just remember the amount of time that you would give to the young adults ministry, the amount of time you would give to us, and some of us that were actively interested in the gospel and the way that you were teaching it and kind of understanding it, and kind of you were mentoring us and teaching us. And
It didn't make sense.
no, you always prioritized Kathy and Kessia. I remember you would always say, if my phone rings and it's Kessia or it's Kathy, I gotta go. And you always did that. I remember that. Sometimes it could be like mid-conversation, like, sorry, I gotta go. And it would be a little abrupt, but it was fine. But I just remember sometimes thinking, like, this is bizarre. Like, this guy, it's like Tuesday till like 10 at night, and he's out here with us, he's teaching us, and I just thought, who does this?
No,
Like, it seems so weird.
that's a
Like,
great point.
What
'cause,
guy does this?
yeah, when I met Tom
I
and
don't know, it
Kathy
seems
too.
really odd.
Yeah, and Tom said, no, we want to come work at the young adults ministry because
Yeah.
I was working as a pastor. I thought that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to work with the young adults. They're the most flitty,
Mhm.
non-committal, post-modern
Yeah.
type breed. Nobody works with us.
And give that much time.
That's a great point.
And there was a chunk of time where you gave so much time and you weren't getting paid a cent either. Giving tons and tons of time, which again, someone would look at you and go, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And that's scary. And that's, so I think that just made me think of that. I think there was a big, I don't look at it so much anymore and go, your life really scares me as much. But there was a big period of time where I thought that
You know, yeah,
didn't
actually,
make sense to me.
now that Lisa's brought it up and we're picking on you, let's just go for another minute or two.
Yeah.
No, but on that note too, one of the things I remember is that you would have been requested to give a big talk somewhere, wherever in the world,
Yeah.
or something.
Oh yeah, it's true. Okay.
It is
You
actually
did,
true.
you would.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's-
But you would have been requested to do that, and you would actually invest more time into preparing for our small group or our early morning discipleship class or whatever it was. And I was always like, this makes 0 sense. Like,
Yeah.
he's like being requested to do this big gig, and he doesn't really care. He cared more about you, me, mid-20s, me in particular, really lost,
Yeah.
and investing in us. It's actually, it is. It means nothing made sense. Nothing lined up.
Well, here I can
You
just
put
bring-
your money to that. You put your time to
Yeah.
that. Everything.
But you guys have just jumped all the way to the end of my sermon, because remember the slide I put up at the end of my sermon? I can still do it. It's still here.
Wow.
That there's no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. And,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and
Spiritual
that's just,
children.
it's
Yeah.
spiritual children.
Yeah.
And that's what we're after in all of this. So
hmm But I feel like, so I'll say this. Maybe I've said this on After Hours. I don't really know. But I remember on my 30th birthday, I'm a little bit older now.
Just
a little bit.
Just a little. Kenny reminded me the other day I have a lot of gray hair now. So I'm a little bit older. I remember on my 30th birthday, someone showed up at work and I wasn't there just because I was off, wanted the day off or something. And they said, oh, she must be so depressed because she's 30 and she's not married. And then
What?
I got so many messages, and so many is not an exaggeration, with people saying, I'll pray for you that this is the year God brings you a man. And I wrote back and I said, I pray this is the year God gives me a motorcycle. I really did. But that's actually the truth. People were afraid that I was going to be depressed and lonely and feel like my life had ended because I turned 30 and I wasn't married. And I actually don't think that's far off from what most people think in society.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I feel like my life doesn't meet the picture. Mm-hmm.
I think your life scares people. For people to go, would I want Ashley's life?
Right.
Would I be happy with Ashley's life? Would
There's
I be-
no backup. There's not.
And like from the set of the default truths,
Mm-hmm.
the Broadway truths that everybody signs on for, your life is really scary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
It's really scary also when you're commuting back to Toronto and living with your parents too.
hi, Mom and Dad, nice to see you.
No, but it's all true, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up.
Mhm.
What's scary in your life?
Oh, what is scary in my life?
You said it today when you were walking. You went on your power walk. What is it? You
Well,
don't.
does that reply to this question?
You don't have the comforts.
you don't have time, Lisa. That's one of
Yeah.
the things you were talking about is like you could go for your walk. You were describing to us
Yeah.
that you'd go for a walk and you'd see people relaxing, sitting on their porch, having a glass of wine, and you're
Yeah.
thinking, I don't have time to do that. And I have everything going on in my life and I have all this to care for. I don't have time to do that. Now you could walk away from your family. You could walk away from Jesus. You could walk, and you don't do that. You won't do that. But there's times that people would look and say, "Man, Lisa's life's a little bit scary. You've got a unique set of children. You've got some unique health issues. You've got, it's just a lot going on. There's a lot to be Lisa right now.
Yeah.
Isn't it true?
And you're invested in a lot of people and things. And outside of your own happiness and your own life and all of that. That's not actually where a lot of your investments lie.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. John said to me the other day, we were talking about even in our complex. He said that they were asking around like if we wanted to be on like the strata council at our complex, and then one of the neighbors was like, "Oh, I know what you mean. Like, if I had small children like that, there's no way I'd be like involved in anything like that." And I'm like, it's not even that I wouldn't want to be involved in the strata complex. It's just that the commitments that I have with this kind of thing and other stuff, like I literally would like implode. Like I just couldn't do that. And John's like, Lisa, you do after hours, you're doing this. Like sometimes I look at even the things that I'm involved in. I love being involved in all these things, even doing after hours and stuff like that. But I think sometimes if somebody peeked into my life too, they would go, why do you go out on a Tuesday night? And like you leave your like household, your husband just gets home, the kids have to go to bed, and you're like, bye, I'm going to do this. Do you know what I mean? Like I think they would be like, that's insane. Like why would you do that?
And why are you doing it?
Do you know what I mean? Like some of these things, like why are you on the elder
but
board?
let's
Like why
answer-
are you? That's
Let's answer.
What?
Why are you doing it?
because this is the most important thing. But I think it looks crazy if this isn't the most important thing. Do you know what I mean? But the amount, like at this season in my life, I think when you have two small children and you're sleep deprived and you've got all this going on, to like come and do something like this seems
Ridiculous.
ridiculous.
I think some people would go, I know why Lisa does that. I mean, she gets out of the house. She gets a break. She gets to get out of the house on a Tuesday night. She gets to go over to Tom and Kathy, and they all, they're fun. They're fun people.
Yeah, for
we,
sure.
we treat you well. We give you
yeah.
a glass of wine.
Uh-huh.
Ashley shows up.
Uh-huh.
We laugh. We chat. It's a good night. It's just the best thing ever.
Totally.
I think a lot of people would go, that's not really scary. But if you're saying that all of that aside, you're here because your life is wrapped around one thing that matters more than anything else, that Jesus actually matters more than anything. Well, that's kind of scary to a lot of people. Trusting Jesus that far, that's the scary thing. And I know that you're not here because of Kathy and I and Ashley. That, well, once you start to build your life around that, people feel like, it's like, yeah, but, and they just don't want to go there.
Yeah.
That's why it's a broad way that leads to destruction and a narrow way that leads to life. I just don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But it's life. This is life.
Yeah.
So me with the young adults, you with this, whatever we're talking about, we're saying it because this is life. This is life. Why do you do what you do? Why do you give up what you give up? Why do you go where you go? Why do you believe what you believe? Because this is life.
It sounds though offensive. You were alluding to this on Sunday. It sounds offensive when it's like, my family's not the most important thing, or my job is not the most important thing, or being a provider financially is not the most important thing. Jesus is the most important thing. This is what defines my life. That sounds like ludicrous to people. But something changes when that becomes your life.
Yeah.
So what is it that changes so much? It's not a trick question.
What does change?
What changed for you? Oh, we got to answer that question after too. But first, what do you think changed when Jesus became your life? And I don't know if there's an exact moment when you're like, this is what I'm committing to wholeheartedly, everything else.
Well, it's a little bit like what we were saying, what you said on Sunday, Tom. Everything kind of becomes upside down. But I like what you said at the end. You said everything becomes upside down, but then you realize everything was meant to be the other way around. And I really like that. It becomes upside down, and then you realize, oh, this is actually the way it was supposed to be, right? That's kind of how you feel, because you go, this makes sense now. This is always the way that I was supposed to feel. This is always what I was longing for.
Yeah.
And this is the way that it was meant to be.
I think that's really important.
Right? So I was even thinking, I know my mom's on here watching tonight, and it made me think of, it seems bizarre. I know even some of the struggles that she's had, she's shared this with me, even with some of her mental health struggles and working through feeling sometimes the depression, feeling low, and realizing, even if I feel this way, and that never changes, and being okay in this place, and feeling peace and knowing his comfort and his love in this place, even if that never changes. That's almost offensive to people, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Because people would go, no, you need to get better, you need to think positive, you need to get out of this place, you need to figure out some sort of, that is like offensive. But to actually be able to say, I don't know if and when I'm ever gonna, I may never, the solution isn't necessarily finding this way out of it. I actually know that regardless of how I'm gonna be in this deep, dark place, I know that I'm okay, and I'm finding his peace, and I'm finding him here.
Yeah.
That's the upside down thing. That's the, and that's what she was telling me about just last week, and we were talking about that, and that's that finding Jesus there and finding
that's so important.
That's the most important thing, and that's scary.
Even in like in the middle of this hard place, to know that it's still Jesus is still real here.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you want to say something?
No. So we're picking on our audience, which is perfect, because I'm going to pick on John Kay. We got to answer his question after.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things John says is nothing made sense. He talks a lot about that, how Jesus makes sense of things. I would say too, just like you're talking about it, there's two things I always wanted. I always wanted to feel free, and I always wanted alignment. Everything felt like there was dissonance everywhere. It didn't add up. It didn't make sense. That's, if you really think it through a little bit more, it's not there. But then that means you're going to live in a way that is totally counter to what people are saying you should do. And in fact, they're going to go so far to push you a lot of times to say, don't do it. Right. Or they'll feel more at peace when it's finally like, oh, Ashley did this, or this is her normal life, or she went this way. Because then I guess it validates what they're doing. Mm-hmm. When you're saying, no, maybe there's a whole other way. Maybe that's the narrow way.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get worried a little bit about being on this narrow way and there aren't a lot of other people around?
Yeah. You're going to be alone.
It's like, I'm odd.
You're going to be left alone.
We're just odd.
Yeah,
and
but
we're even odd in Christianity, because Christianity, generally speaking, still follows all the default truths.
Yeah, your family should be everything. Empower it does. It defaults to love your family, love
I don't
God.
get worried that I'm odd. I get worried that I feel alone in it. Like, the odd part to me is like, whatever, I'm odd. I sometimes feel like alone in
but
really,
do you know what
though?
I mean? Like, I'm like, sometimes I feel like, oh.
But work that through.
Everybody's over there, and you're kind of like, you know what I mean? Sometimes I feel that way. Do you ever feel like that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you can feel alone.
Yeah.
But it's not actually feeling lonely.
No.
Because you realize the truth. And those that love you and stand by you and help you, it's because they see past everything else.
Yeah.
It's narrow, though.
Yeah.
If you asked Paul, what would Paul say? Would Paul have felt alone?
Yeah, I think he's
That's why he was
he
even
could relate
Timothy
to
in.
it, right?
Yeah.
He could relate to those feelings and to write to Timothy and say, no one is with me. Everyone's forsaken. Everyone's gone. I have felt that from time to time. You know, there's always a little part almost in every day where it's like I especially these days where I see fewer people face to face, connecting, physical. Just like, I just feel a little bit lonely in it. And then that's why it's so important to have, that's why it's important to have after hours. You guys come in, you walk in, and you remind me that this is what we're doing because it matters. And that we're doing this together. And we help each other. We excite each other down that road together because we walk in a narrow road and there are few on it. So it's great when you find somebody else on the road and you walk together and you go, yes,
You're with me.
You're with me. This is awesome.
Even that's why communion, I think, was so valuable a couple of weeks ago. Just hearing I'm with you, I'm for you, I'm not leaving you. It's so critical.
Have you ever gone someplace and you're following directions? I guess this is pre-GPS days, but you kind of thinking, did I get lost? Am I really on the right road? And where is everybody? Like, we're all going, and I seem to be all alone. Then you run into somebody from your group, and you go, I'm not alone. This is awesome.
Yeah.
That's how I feel whenever I see you guys, whenever I see people from Bethel, whenever I feel like, I'm not alone. We're in this together. And that says we encourage each other down that road. Lisa, I just have to ask you, I hope your mom was being genuine. She says, I appreciate you sharing my experience.
Yeah, she's
not sarcastic.
My mom doesn't really know sarcasm, so she's.
Because I thought Charlotte could be said, thanks for sharing my experience, Lisa.
No, she's not a sarcastic
That's
person.
cool. Thanks, Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you don't
So we're calling out people, our audience. And I want to say even to Jason and Chelsea that they must feel alone sometimes, right? Like they're separated from us. And I think that's been one of the coolest things is having them with us every Sunday for the last little while. Because it could feel like, I think I would feel like if I was out somewhere alone somewhat. Yeah, so it changes everything. Okay, so what about the next part that you talked about? What you build on.
Well, the good tree was first, right? You can't.
Right. Okay. Fine.
A good tree doesn't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree doesn't produce good fruit. And
somebody wrote something else.
That's Chelsea.
No, but what was it about?
Oh, yeah, there's something higher. The more of us that are in Jesus, we aren't alone, and we were never alone with Jesus. Good, Char. Good comment. So I don't know. What do I say about that?
You said the good fruit, the good tree
doesn't produce bad fruit, and the bad tree doesn't produce good fruit.
Yes.
What do I say about that now? What we were getting at was Jesus. It seems like he's talking again about, okay, so how you live in your life? Do you live in a good life? But he's not, because in the very next passage he says these people did all these things, and he says, I didn't know you. What does it mean to live out of a good tree? It means to live out of Jesus. Jesus is the tree. This isn't about go try to be a better tree. You're not well. Try to get well. You've got bad roots. Do something with your roots. This is Jesus is the tree, and we live out of Him. That's why He says, "I'm the vine, you're the branches." We live out of Him. We live out of knowing Him, and that's the fruit. The fruit is that I know Jesus and He knows me. That's what He takes into the next passage, the house on the rock, and where He's talking about, in that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not do all these wonderful things in your name? And He'll say, I didn't know you. The fruit of a Jesus-centered life is that you get to know Jesus and He knows you. And it's that relationship. This is really what it's about. Kathy and I have this running joke because I needed a vacuum cleaner, and I got engaged to, my vacuum cleaner was broken. I got engaged to Kathy. She had a vacuum cleaner. So I said, Kathy, the main reason I want to marry you
What
is so
kind
that
of
I can get a
vacuum
vacuum
cleaner?
cleaner. I don't remember.
I hope it
Kathy,
was
do you
good.
remember what kind of vacuum cleaner it was? She had a piano and a vacuum
Oh,
cleaner. So these are two
whoa,
things
two
that my life
things.
needed. And it would be ridiculous if that were true, right? Because what do you really need? You want a relationship. You're looking for that. We walk this life not because of the things that come to it, but because of the relationship. The thing that we get out of this life is Jesus,
Mm.
and that's it. We even sometimes mess it up when we go, I just feel healthier, I feel happier, I feel more
Better,
aligned,
yeah.
I feel better. That's all good, and you would say that to your husband or your wife, but you wouldn't stop there. You'd say, because it's you. This is what I want. This is what I'm after. I'm after you. This is what Jesus wants us to do. He says, look, I'm for you. I want you to be for me. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. No other questions. No other. I'm for you. You're for me. Want to get married?
It's pretty awesome though, right?
Yeah.
That's just solves it all right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Well, you're on the talking. You gotta talk about the next part then.
Well,
What do you
I
build
I
on?
just put it all together. You build on that.
You build on that.
You build on that.
What is that? What do you think? What does that look like for people then?
So he says then you're like a house built on a rock. And when the tribulations, the trials, the troubles of life come, you're safe. You're secure. You're all right. And that's the thing. That's the thing we were talking about is like you just have something in the middle of
Everything's falling apart.
when the crap falls out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Your house is built on a rock.
I asked a stupid question this summer and I was like, is it good to have a house built on a rock?
What
And
did
John
John
and Bill
say?
were like,
What
and
did
they
Landon
laughed.
say?
Yeah, he didn't say anything. But I was like, because I just was like, is that a good, like, I was just thinking of like this giant rock, like in a house, like on the edge of a cliff. And I'm like, is that a good thing?
Think of Henrik and Sandy's house.
Yeah.
It's built on a rock.
But then Bill was like, well, your house is built on a rock. He was thinking about it. They poured like a ton of concrete
Exactly.
or whatever. Every house that's like solid is built on like a concrete, whatever is like a rock, right? And I'm like, oh, that was maybe a really dumb question.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, you're right. Because the alternatives would be less. You know what I mean? Intense. So that was just a little side note.
And the reason a foundation matters is because storms come,
Exactly.
because frost comes.
And you want it to
because-
be,
And
yeah.
if nothing ever challenged the house, you could just put it on sand. You could
Or
just
straw
level
or
out some
whatever,
sand,
yeah.
raise it
Right.
up, and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But it won't be fine with the first frost.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't be fine with the first windstorm. It won't be fine with the first flood.
Yeah.
You need a rock. You need a foundation
Yeah.
to be safe.
Poured
Mm.
concrete.
So, what's our foundation?
So,
I know him.
right. And then, because that was kind of my next question is what's our default then in the midst of the storm, in the midst of everything else?
Well, I think the broad truth default is I just want a house that looks nice. Like honestly,
that's
we used
so
to build
true.
homes, and
So true.
we went into this one development, and they put up all these houses, but they put it on 1 foot foundations.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't to code, wasn't right, and they'd done this. It was all part of a scam. The houses looked great.
Yeah, but they
But
were
the foundations weren't enough, and this is
nothing.
in Michigan, right? It's not going to work. There's going to be frost. There's going to be snow. There's going to be trouble, and everything. The whole place collapsed the first winter. Just collapsed. But we go, man, I just want a house that looks good. I want a house that has everything that I want, and like look at my kitchen window, and we do that. We do that. I just want a life that looks good. I don't have trouble. I don't want to take time for a foundation.
You know what's crazy though?
Hmm.
And this kind of goes to what my parents were saying in their comment. I am so the type that is like my personality, and I hate to admit this, I'm so like the IKEA personality. Meaning, I like, and I hate this about myself, but I'm way more the type that's like, just make it look good, and I'm fine.
Hmm.
I wish so badly I was more the type that's like, no, you put in the hard work, you do it good from the start. That's way more John. Is like, you do it right from the beginning.
Buy the right
and,
vehicle at the beginning.
Yeah, you do it right from the beginning. You put in the money, you put in the time, and it's good from the start. I'm way more like, no, you just like get the thing that looks nice, and then it'll be fine. As long as it looks good, we're good. Like, that's so much more me, and I don't love that about myself. And I can be that way in everything.
Mm.
The crazy thing is, though, I can be that way ultimately too in my like faith, in my how I believe, everything. And I hate that. And yet, I feel like Jesus is like, that's fine. I'm still gonna turn. I'm still gonna be Jesus, and I'm gonna take you, and I'm gonna turn your foundation into something amazing. Do you know what I mean? Which is awesome, because if I
Make
am
you grounded. Yeah.
if I am so that way, which I hate that about myself, he can still take me, who's that way. I would think I'd have to be that person that's very like a John type, and my foundation will become this sturdy rock with Jesus. You know what I mean?
But even without knowing how
Yeah.
or feeling,
He can take
and it has happened.
someone
in your
like
life.
me
Yeah.
who's not that way at all, and I'd way rather take the easier route. I'd way rather take the wide path. I just would. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm so that way.
Yeah.
I'm like, you show me the wide path, I'll take that one. You give me a comfort choice, I will go that way. And I feel like it's not been easy, but he has somehow, by his grace,
Mm-hmm.
shown me how to. He's made my foundation
He's made you
sturdy,
more.
strong, more, and it's been nothing. I feel like nothing that I've done, nothing that I have, like, I don't know. So it's just as you're saying this, I'm realizing more of his grace even in this conversation and going, it's nothing that I have done, and I'm realizing because I'm so that way, and yet somehow
Mhm.
he's building that foundation, and that foundation's stronger. So there's hope for the person that is like me, that is not that way at all. That's way more,
Hmm.
you know.
And that's because there's no hope if it's up to us to do and build and be.
Yeah.
But if it's up to Jesus to take us. So we talked about how doing is easy in the sense of, it might not be easy as in, oh yeah, I can do that. But as in, if you say to somebody, this is what you can do to inherit eternal life, they'll say, lay it on me. I know it's going to be awful. I know it's going to be hard, but I'll do it. I'll devote my life to it. But if you say to somebody, love Jesus, let him love you, and believe in who he is and what he's done, I just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Everyone's always, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Believe Jesus. Trust Jesus. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it. That was the comment just above. That we don't have to do, just believe
Mhm.
and know.
Mhm.
So
But that's pretty awesome that Karen just shared too.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that the best? It's
Yeah.
Jesus makes it something. He turns it all into something.
Mhm.
So where are we going next? Tell us.
Yeah, what are we doing this week?
this week's a recap of the entire sermon.
Oh, good. So
Oh.
we'll be expert.
Sorry.
Apparently not.
Mhm.
I don't feel like I'm an expert. I feel like I've learned a lot just doing this time through the sermon. But we're going to recap the sermon.
Mhm.
And then we're going to go to 1 Peter, I think, after that. So, hi, Ted.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any other last questions from our audience? Anything you want to share? I want to ask this. What do you do in the midst of living the narrow path when everyone thinks it's crazy? What do you do? What do you do? How do you respond to that? What do you say when people look and they go,
Don't be distracted, actually.
What are the winds?
what are the winds?
This is just
No, but just that. It's like, if it's like you're living a life and everyone says, that's absurd, how do you hold to the straight and narrow? What holds you? What helps you?
Honestly, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's often, and we were talking about this on Sunday morning with our mini church group, is for me it's looking back always. looking over my shoulder and going, I know this to be true. Because sometimes in the moment of, maybe that's what he meant by what are the winds. Now I know what Bill's saying, because I'm getting to know Bill and his random weird way of saying things.
Thank
What
you,
are the
Bill.
winds, waves?
The winds, the waves, the things that push against the house. That's what he's saying. But I think it's when you're in the midst of the storm, I think
Yeah.
it's looking over your shoulder and going, because sometimes it's hard in those moments, and looking over your shoulder and going, I know this to be true, and I knew this is where I knew Jesus, and this is where, like,
I learned him.
I learned him.
I felt
this is
him.
where I felt him. And he's always been trustworthy, and I can always trust him. And I knew him here, and I will know him now. That's for me at least. Is always, because sometimes in the midst of it, I'm like, everything's like Bill said, the flood, the wind, everything's going crazy,
Mm.
and I find it so helpful to look behind me and go, no, he's always. I've never been alone. And these are the times that he's always been with me, and he's trustworthy.
So when have you ever felt like you're getting knocked off course, Ashley?
Me? Every day, all the time.
What is it that knocks you off course? Because Bill's asking, what are the winds and waves? I'm asking, what knocks you off the path?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's a
It
good
can be
question.
something simple when someone looks at you and says you're absolutely ridiculous, or you should go for that. Go for that. Go for that relationship. Go for that job. You could upgrade to that. I've had a lot of those offers. Go do that. Go make more money. Go whatever it is. Or you can do anything. I think that's one of the worst things.
And you're missing out.
Yeah, you're missing out on all of that. Your clock's ticking. You're getting old,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do all of those things. If I'm just real and honest, that's what I hear all the time.
And what helps you? Like, what do you do to kind of say, okay, what helps you move through that?
I always know, regardless of whatever happens, Jesus is Jesus and he loves me and he has me. I always start with that. Because I don't always know. I don't always know the right decisions. I've had a lot of decisions this week and I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know. You sometimes don't know. Is this a good job? Is that a better job? Should I be here? Should I be there? You don't even understand any of that stuff. And not because you're being greedy or any of those things. You just don't get it, right?
Yeah.
So I always start with that. And then I always tell myself, I have everything. I have everything in Jesus, and I have everything because this isn't the end. I have eternity. I have it all. There's nothing that's ever going to be lost. I'm never going to be without. I never will have missed out unless I don't go after Jesus. That's where I always land. If I look at this, though, I don't meet the mark at all. I'm actually a far cry from it. But if I look at something that's so much greater, it's all good. It literally is. Does that sound weak?
No?
No, so you actually just start to go, nothing matters. It just doesn't really, it doesn't really matter. And I want my life to matter because I realize this doesn't matter. Then my life starts to matter. And I knew from a young age, I always wanted to feel free. I always want to know, I just feel free. I'm making decisions. I'm not doing things because I'm afraid or people are telling me this. And then I started to learn later on in life that comes actually from Jesus. Because it doesn't really matter then.
So we keep our eyes on him, right? We're not going to find him anywhere else. We're going to find him at the cross. We're going
Yeah.
to find him on that narrow path. And that's where we want to be. We want to be where he is. And Teddy says, we got to speak out the truth and remind people of the truth and take the space and say, look, let's go after Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your eyes there.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else.
It's really all
Well,
that
it's been a
matters.
particularly lively audience tonight.
It has.
You guys are
It's
so
the
great.
most-
And we said
Yeah.
so much
Talkative
fun.
audience.
Thanks for joining
Thanks,
us.
everyone.
We'll be back next week.
Read the whole sermon next week.
The whole sermon.
The whole
Everything.
sermon, 5 to 7,
Yeah.
chapter 5, 6, and 7.
Love you
Okay.
guys. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.